examined.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
Okay. Can you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
It's Tabitha Claytor, C-L-A-Y-T-O-R.
And Ms. Claytor, I'm going to tell you what we tell everybody because we've had some issues. That microphone in front of you amplifies your voice so that you don't have to shout. So if you can just kind of try to be mindful of that as we go on today, and then everybody can hear you, okay?
Okay.
Ms. Claytor, can you tell us how old you are?
I am 29.
Are you married?
Yes.
And how long have you been married?
A little over 6 years.
Okay. And do you have children?
Yes.
How many children and what are their ages?
I have 3. They are 9, 5, and 4.
Do you work?
Yes.
Where do you work?
At a nursing home in Rosemount.
In where?
Rosemount.
Okay. And what do you do there?
Housekeeping.
Okay. And how long have you worked there?
About a month now.
Okay. And can you tell us where generally you live?
West Portsmouth.
You said West Portsmouth?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us who your current husband is?
Wayne Claytor.
Okay. And were you married prior to marrying Mr. Claytor?
Yes.
And can you tell us who you were married to previously?
George Wagner.
And is that George Wagner the fourth?
The 4th, yes.
Okay. And if you could, first of all, tell us, where did you grow up?
Lucasville, Ohio.
And can you tell us how you first met George Wagner and how it kind of developed into you dating and ultimately getting married?
My mom worked for his grandmother, Frederica Wagner. We met through them.
And who is your mother?
Patricia Howard.
And can you tell us how long she worked for Frederica?
Maybe about 10, 15 years.
Okay, so quite some time.
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall how old you were when she was working for Ms. Wagner?
She started when I was maybe 10.
Okay. And when she would work there, would you sometimes accompany her?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about that.
She would take me and my sisters to work with her, and we would just sit there and, I guess, just hang out.
Okay. And Ms. Claytor, how many sisters do you have?
5.
Okay. And would you all go with your mother?
No, just 2 or 3 of us.
Okay. And when you would go there, first of all, would you go every day with her or just on some days?
Just
or
some
tell me about
days.
that? Okay. And can you tell us what she did for Ms. Wagner?
She was, I think, an STNA.
Okay. And so what use did Frederica Wagner have for an STNA?
She owns a group home for MRDD adults.
You said for MRDD clients?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know approximately how many individuals stay in that group home?
4 or 5.
And is that group home on the property of the Flying W?
No, I don't know if she owns that part or not.
Okay. But she owns the group home?
Yes.
Okay. And so did your mother work in the group home?
Yes.
Okay, as an STNA. And so when she was there, what kinds of things would you guys do? Would you hang out in the group home, or would you hang out on the property itself?
Most of the time I was just inside with her and with the residents.
Okay. And at what point did you meet George Wagner?
When I was about 12.
And how did you meet him?
My mom took us to Frederica's house, and we rode 4-wheelers. Me and George had rode 4-wheelers to his house.
You said you rode 4-wheelers to his house?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us, where did George Wagner live at that time?
On Bethel Hill Road.
And can you tell us approximately how far away is that from the Flying W?
Well, if you take the regular road, then probably about 20 minutes. But if you go over the hills and through the woods, it's about maybe 5.
Okay. And was it just you and George riding 4-wheelers at that time?
It was me and George, and then his brother and my sister.
Okay. And his brother is who?
Jake Wagner.
Okay. And which one of your sisters?
Patricia.
And once you got to that location, did you stay at that location, or were you just kind of going back and forth?
Just kind of going back and forth for a while.
Okay. And was that can you tell us, you said you were age 12, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us if then you and George started dating, is a strong word at age 12, but
Yes, we started dating about 12.
considered yourselves boyfriend and girlfriend?
Yes.
Okay. And how long would you say that took to develop? Was it more than just that first time, or?
It was, well, we would just hang out sometimes, and then I guess it just kind of turned into it.
Okay. All right. So would you continue to see him in that similar fashion as far as being up on his property and doing various activities together?
Yes, for the most part, or his mom and dad would come over to the house and pick us up over to my house.
And who are his parents?
Well, he goes by Billy, but it's George Wagner III and Angela Wagner.
Okay. So they would actually come over and pick you up sometimes,
Yes,
and then take you to,
their house or whatever we were going to do.
okay. And are they picking more than just you up at that time?
For a couple of months, it was me and my sister Trish.
And what other kinds of things would you do?
We would go to the movies or go out to eat for dinner, or we would just go to his house and would ride 4-wheelers or go fishing or hunting.
And how long would you say that lasted?
About a year.
Okay. And what happened?
He broke it off.
And then do you, how long do you stay apart from each other?
About 6 years.
Okay. Do you have other boyfriends in between?
Yes.
Okay. Did he have other girlfriends in between?
I have no idea. I didn't talk to him
Okay.
in that time.
So you were about 13 when he broke up with you? Okay. So what made you get back together?
Hannah had found me on Facebook and got us connected again.
And when you say Hannah, can you tell us, what is Hannah's last name?
Roden.
And did you know Hannah prior to her reaching out to you on Facebook?
No.
Okay. But she sends you a message
Yes.
through Facebook. And what does she say?
She basically just explained that she was Jake Wagner's girlfriend and she knew George, and she was basically said that she wanted us to get back together.
And so what happened from there?
I think George may have sent me a friend request or something like that, and then we started to talk.
So at this point, you're 18 or 19 years old, is
Yes.
that right? And can you tell us, did you go to school?
Yes.
Where did you go to school?
Northwest.
And where is that located?
McDermott, Ohio.
Say it again.
McDermott.
Okay. And did you graduate from high school?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know how old you were when you graduated?
18 or 19.
Okay. So, do you remember what year in high school you were at the time that you resumed this relationship?
It was my senior year in 12th grade.
And go ahead and tell us just kind of how that relationship developed. Like, what kinds of things were you doing together?
Just riding around on four-wheelers, fishing, just hanging out with his friends.
Did you also start living with he and his family? At some
After
point?
a couple of months being together, yes.
You already testified you were 18 or 19, so at least age 18 at that time,
Yes.
correct? Okay. And at that time, were they still at that Bethel Hill location?
Yes.
And can you tell us who all lived in that house at that time?
Well, now it was me, and then George, his brother, his mom, and his dad.
Can you tell us what the age difference is between you and George?
I think about 3 years.
So at that time, George would have been 21 or 22?
Yes.
Okay. And did you finish high school?
Yes.
And you graduated while you were living with the Wagners?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Was your mom okay with you living with the Wagners?
She didn't care.
Okay. She knew the family?
Yes.
At the time that you first moved in with the Wagners on Bethel Hill, were Jake and George working at that time?
I don't believe so.
Was there a time, well, just go ahead and tell us at what point did you guys get married?
A year after we started dating.
And do you know, first of all, when did you get married?
2012, a couple months after I graduated high school.
So you would have graduated in May of 2012?
Yes,
And do you remember what month you got married?
July.
And at some point after getting married to George, well, first of all, where did you get married?
At his grandmother's church.
And where is that located?
It is on the same property as the group home.
Very close proximity to the Flying W, correct?
Yes, it's just a few minutes away from it.
And can you tell us, after you married George, did you eventually get pregnant?
Yes. About 8 months after.
5 months after you were married?
About 8 months after.
8 months, okay. And you ultimately had that child, correct?
Yes.
And can you tell us when he was born?
July 17th, 2013.
And at that time, were you still living with the Wagners?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us, during the time that you were living there, you initially said it was Jake, George, Billy, Angela, and you, correct?
Yes.
Was there a point when somebody else started living there as well?
Hannah Roden started living there whenever she had gotten pregnant.
Okay. And do you know when her child was born in relation to your son?
My son was born in July. Her daughter was born the same year, but I think in November.
Okay. And so she had started living there at some point prior to November of 13?
Yes.
Okay. And would she stay there full-time, or would she sometimes be at her family's place?
She sometimes would spend a couple days out with her mom.
Okay. Did that change after she had her child?
Somewhat.
Was she spending more or less time at the Wagners?
More time.
And what about you, as far as during the time that you lived with the Wagners? Were you coming and going in the same fashion that Hannah Mae was?
No,
Tell me about that.
I wasn't allowed.
And what do you mean you weren't allowed?
George and his family would not let me.
Okay. At that time, did you have a vehicle of your own?
No, I did not even have my driver's license.
And were you aware that George and his family did not like your family?
I had some kind of idea that they didn't like him.
Wait just a
Sorry.
minute,
Sorry.
basis. Well, probably need some foundation, how she became aware. She said who was not liked.
Okay. So, how did the Wagners feel towards your family?
Objection to the Wagner.
Well, George and his family. How did George and his family feel about your family?
They did not like my family.
Okay. And is that why you weren't allowed to come and go as you please?
It's part of the reason.
Okay. And specifically, would they ever let your family come to visit you there?
Objection. Be specific.
All right. I'm going to sustain the objection. I don't, not necessarily to the subject matter, but I think we need to determine who it is we're talking about. So I'm going to sustain the objection.
Did your family ever come visit you at Bethel Hill Road?
My mother was there once, I believe, and then one of my sisters was there once.
And how long were you there for in totality?
How long was I where?
Living with the Wagners. So you started in 2012 and you were married in 2012, right?
Yes.
And had your son in 2013.
Yes.
Ultimately, you actually move away from Bethel Hill, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you were there for approximately 2 years before you moved to a new location, is that correct?
Yes.
There's no foundation.
Say it again.
No foundation.
Well, I'm going to overrule that other answer.
During the time that you were at Bethel Hill, you're saying that your mother visited you once and one of your sisters visited you once, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And was that your decision or somebody else's?
It was more of they just showed up.
Okay, so they just showed up, but the fact that they didn't come any other time, was that your choice?
No,
Or somebody else's?
it was not my choice.
Okay. Did you want your family to be able to visit?
Yes.
And in fact, when your child was born, was your family at the hospital?
No.
Who was at the hospital with you?
George was and Angela.
And once you had your son, who spent the night with you in the hospital?
George's mother.
George and his mother, or just George's mother?
Just his mother. George went home.
Did you want your mother at the hospital?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell us on kind of a daily basis, in addition to not being able to go see your family or have them see you, can you tell us what the kind of daily living environment was there?
Wake up, eat breakfast, go feed what animals we had, and then take care of the house.
And were there any restrictions on your daily life, I guess?
Well, council approach here just a minute.
Okay, so you said previously that you were not allowed to visit your family, and your family was not permitted to visit you, correct?
Yes.
And who determined that? Who made those determinations?
It was Angela's house, so it was her rules.
And so are you saying that it was Angela's choices
Yes.
then? Okay. And did George go along with those choices?
Yes.
And can you tell us, you said Angela's house, Angela's rules. Does that apply to anything other than just your family coming and going?
It applied to basically everything.
Okay. So tell us about that.
Cooking, cleaning, laundry.
And what do you mean by that?
It all had to be done the way that she wanted it, or have to either redo it or she'll just do it herself.
And can you tell us, were there also rules that applied to the types of sexual relations you and George could engage in?
I'll let her answer that.
Yes, she said that if you give blowjobs, you'll go to hell,
Oh, wait a
so
minute. let's listen to the question. Were there rules? That's yes or no.
Yes.
And the next question, all right?
Okay. Can you tell us what some of those rules were?
Objection.
Are we gonna find out who made the rules?
Who made those rules?
Angela?
And what were those rules regarding? Okay. What were the rules that Angela had for the types of sexual relations you could engage in with your husband?
You wasn't allowed to give blowjobs because you'd go to hell. And you had to only have sex to have children.
And is that something that she said to you?
She said it to me and George both.
Okay. When you were together?
Yes.
Was there any, where would you be when those conversations would occur?
Usually at the kitchen table or in the bedroom.
Whose bedroom?
George's.
Okay. And would you stay in George's bedroom?
As long as I was allowed to, yes.
So when you say as long as you were allowed to, tell me what you're talking about.
Well, towards the end of the night, she would usually have me leave so she could sit there and scratch his back and talk about the day.
So Angela would come into the room that you shared with your husband,
Yes.
and she would ask you to leave, and then she would scratch his back and talk about the day.
Yes.
How frequent of an occurrence was that?
Every night.
And after she was done with that, would you return to the room?
Yes.
Okay. Where, after you had your son, where would he sleep?
Most of the time, he would sleep with Angela and Billy.
And again, was that your choice?
No.
Where did you want your son to sleep?
With me in my bed, or at least in the crib that was bought for him,
Okay. And where was that crib located?
next to my bed.
Okay. And who made the decision that he would sleep with Angela and Billy instead of with you?
George and Angela.
Can you tell us, or I guess I should say, had you ever shared with George that you had been sexually abused as a child?
I did, but only because he had found out by somebody else.
Okay. How did he find out?
My sister had told her boyfriend, and then my mother had told me that my sister had told someone.
Okay. She had called someone?
She had called me and told me that she had told someone.
Okay. And so at that point, you shared that information?
Yes.
And can you tell us when in the relationship that was?
So I was pregnant with my son.
Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't
Could you speak up a little?
I was pregnant with my son.
Okay. And can you tell us, what was George's reaction to that?
He was mad. He said he was gonna go kill him, and I told him no, and I sat on him until he calmed down.
Based on that information, well, first of all, was it a relative of yours?
Yes.
Okay. And based on that information, did you have some understanding of them not wanting you to take your child around your family?
Yes.
Okay. But you still wanted your family to be able to come and see your son?
Yes.
Can you tell us how long it was before your mother was able to see your son?
He was almost about 1.5 years after he was born.
And where does your mother live in the state of Ohio?
Yes.
Can you tell us, when Hannah was there, did you guys get along?
No.
Tell me about that.
We both were basically competing for Angela's approval.
And can you tell us if you were ever accused of various bad acts, for instance, stealing?
Yes.
Okay. And who accused you of stealing?
Angela.
And specifically, what were you accused of stealing?
$400.
Did you steal that money?
No.
Did you live up to Angela's, did you get her approval? Did you live up to her expectations? Okay. Tell me about that.
I never really did much of anything right for her.
Okay. And how did you know that?
She would tell me.
Can you tell us, while you were there with them, specifically up on Bethel Hill Road, were there any structures that burned?
Yes, our home.
Okay. And tell me which structure, you said your home, but what was your home at that time?
Pretty sure it was a house that was built kind of around a trailer.
Okay. And do you know if that fire was intentionally set?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And how do you know that?
Because before it had burnt, we had moved a bunch of the stuff that we didn't want burnt from the house to a garage type hunting cabin that was on the property.
Okay, and when you say we, who is we?
Me and George and his mom, dad, and brother.
So Jake, George, Angela, Billy, and you.
Yes.
Okay. And you said you moved items that you didn't want to have burned. Can you give us an idea of what some of those items were?
Beds, dressers, most of our clothing, deer heads, pictures, gun safes, guns.
And you moved them to another structure on that same property?
Yes.
Okay. Was that the same day that the fire was set, or days
No.
leading up to it, or
It
what?
was days leading up to it.
And can you tell us how that particular fire was set?
A pan that was overfilled with grease on their propane stove.
Okay. And were you present when that pan
No.
was placed?
I was-
Sorry, what'd you say?
I was there that morning,
Okay,
but me and Angela had left that day.
okay. And where did you guys go?
We went out shopping for party stuff
Okay. And what was the party for?
for my son. He had turned 1 month old.
So basically, that would have been August of 2013?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. And can you tell us, was everybody present, Jake, George, you, Angela, and Billy, all aware of what was happening?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the purpose of burning the house?
Insurance.
And was insurance money in fact received as a
Yes.
result? Okay. And how do you know that?
The insurance company needed proof that we had the stuff in the house that we said that we had in there. So to get that proof, Angela had went and bought a bunch of receipt books, and we wrote out receipts for stuff that looked like it may have been in the house.
And you turn those receipts in.
Yes.
Were you aware of any other structures that burned on Bethel Hill?
I know Jake's truck had caught fire and burnt the garage down.
And again, do you know if that was an intentional fire?
I am not for sure.
Okay. You were not present for that?
No.
Okay. Anything else that you were aware of?
Not that I can remember.
Okay. After that home burned, what did you guys do?
Drove all over the place trying to find a new place.
Okay. And did you ultimately find a new place?
Yes.
Okay, and where was that?
That was in, on Peterson Road.
Is that in Peebles?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall who purchased that home?
It was put under George and Jake's name.
And did all of you move into that location?
Yes.
Jake, George, you, Angela, and Billy?
Yes.
And was Hannah there at that time, full-time or not, if you recall?
Mostly full-time.
Okay. And when this fire was set and you indicated you had left with Angela to get party supplies for your son, did you take your son with you?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall when you were returning to the residence, what you saw or what was said?
We were maybe about 5 or 10 minutes away from the house, and we had seen the big stream of smoke, and Angela said, "Oh boy, I hope that's not ours."
So was the insurance money used to purchase that new home, if you know?
Yes, I believe so.
Were you ever accused of doing anything else other than stealing while you were with them, as far as things that you did to them, allegedly?
Well, after I had finally got my son, he had told me that they said that I had tried to poison them and that I killed the Verdon family.
Your son indicated that's what they had told him.
Yes.
Objection.
Basis is,
Here's your son.
Well, at what time period was that?
let me, I'm
I'm
going to
sorry.
sustain that objection in order that response stricken, let you ask another question as to the subject matter.
Okay. What time period was that?
That was right after the Wagners had gotten arrested and my son finally got to move in with me.
Finally got to move in with you?
Yes.
Okay. And how old was he at that time?
5.
And under what circumstance did he tell you that? Like, what made him just say that to you?
I'm sorry, but who is it that she's quoting here? I'm not really following.
Okay, it's her 5-year-old son, yes. So when he told you that, what was going on? Was there anything going on that?
Objection.
So at this time, the court is sustaining the objection to what the witness was told, and will order the response stricken. Now, it's my understanding that there's going to be a break at this point. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, the parties have agreed. We will not conclude with this witness today, and I know the court likes to not keep our jurors late, so.
And again, ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of admitting evidence concerning the what the witness testified to about the fire, the purpose for entering that evidence and is for the sole purpose of allowing you to consider the probative value, if any, that such evidence, if believed by you, may have in establishing motive or common plan or scheme, or identifying the defendant as a co-conspirator in any conspiracy that you may find. That's the reason. Now, you're not to consider the evidence for the purpose of proving the character of the defendant or any member of the defendant's family in order to show that the defendant acted in conformity with such character. There's a reason for that rule. The reason for the rule that this evidence cannot be considered for the purpose of proving character and that the defendant acted in conformity with certain character is that it does not follow from the defendant's past acts or past acts of the defendant's family that he committed any of the particular crimes charged in this case. The state of Ohio has the burden, as we've discussed, of proving each and every element of each particular crime charged in this case beyond a reasonable doubt, and that burden is not satisfied by any inference that the defendant committed any of those crimes charged because his past acts suggest a propensity to commit crimes. This evidence may not be used for that purpose, and you are so instructed. It's for a limited purpose evidence, and I've explained the purpose for which it's being admitted. Now, this witness, the state's not through with this witness on direct examination, but it is getting late, and since they won't be able to finish with this witness either on direct or cross today anyway, we're going to take our break at this time for the evening. You'll be coming back tomorrow at 9 o'clock. You're to assemble at the jury room on the first floor at 9 o'clock to be brought up here by court personnel. While you're on break between now and tomorrow morning, you're not to discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else. You're not to permit this case to be discussed with you or in your presence. You are not to form or express an opinion concerning this case. You're not to do any research at all concerning this case, either as to the facts or as to the law. You're not to read, view, or listen to any reports or accounts of this case from any source at all. And that would include Facebook, other internet sources, social media sources, would also include print media, broadcast media such as radio and television. You're to refrain from all sources of any accounts or reports of this case. And you're to have no contact, of course, with any participants in the case, and including counsel, parties, and witnesses. Now, does counsel for either side have anything further today before we adjourn for the evening?
No.
All right. Then we are adjourned until 9 o'clock tomorrow night.